Welcome back to the World Revolution News. My name is Thomas Jefferson, and today is December 9th, 2011. Today's episode is based on concerns that with a crumbling democracy in Europe, it may lead to a rebirth of nationalism. It seems fascism is on the rise as the Union in Europe is crumbling, and we don't need a rebirth or revolution that conjures up dictators. Now if you think fascism is a 20th century thing, and in the past, just as we assumed, you might want to reconsider. Here is Emily Pankhurst with more in Europe.
Since the 1990s, nationalism has become a major part of politics and society in Bulgaria. Racist violence is becoming more and more common. Racism and nationalism are nothing new for Bulgaria. After the fall of the Iron Curtain in Europe, it spread throughout the former communist state in the 1990s, said Krasim Ikhanov, president of the Helsinki Committee. He said that already at the beginning of the decade, extremist groups like neo-Nazi skinheads were becoming apparent. The state, however, has yet to react to this kind of violence in an adequate way. With regard to this form of toleration, there has already been a ruling issued by the European Court of Human Rights against Bulgaria, Ikhanov went on to tell Deutsche Welle, which is an international broadcaster that produces television, radio, and online content, in 30 languages in Europe. Ikhanov also went on to say that even in politics, nationalism has been a major force since the democratic turn in Bulgaria. An extreme right-wing party was never able to materialize, but that's only because the country's major parties already used nationalist sentiments in their propaganda. Only after the European Union began to put some pressure did Bulgaria's major parties, quote, clean the ranks of nationalist elements, Ikhanov went on to say. Both the Bulgarian socialists and the conservatives wanted to be accepted in the European Parliament, and they were forced to make changes to their respective platforms in order to be accepted into the Union. This cleansing of this nationalism ideology from the major parties had the opposite effect that it was intended to. In 2005 Attica was founded, a party that is far more extreme. The party's leader mobilized voters during campaigns with slogans such as, "Convicted gypsies belong in work camps," or "Bulgaria for Bulgarians." 2 months after being founded, Attica made it into the Bulgarian parliament as the country's fourth most popular party. Ever since, the group has routinely used racist slogans directed against ethnic, religious and sexual minorities to gain the interest of potential voters. The established Liberal and Democratic parties, however, are too weak to counteract the nationalist trend in Bulgarian politics, said Daniel Smilov, program director at the Center for Liberal Strategies. At the moment the entire political class can't resist nationalist ideas, said Smilov, adding, however, that the movement currently poses no threat to the state. But this is no reason to bask in false security, Smilov warned. Just this year, following a protest march against a mosque in Sofia, violence breaks out between members of the Attica party and practicing Muslims. Members of another right-wing party together with hooligans attacked a Jehovah's Witnesses prayer house and assaulted the people inside. And at the beginning of October, a 27-year-old man was sentenced to 10 months of probation because he called for the slaughtering of gypsies on Facebook. But it's not just Bulgaria that experiencing this extreme right. A series of murders has German authorities worried that homegrown, right-wing terrorism could be more widespread and better organized than originally believed. Germany's Interior Minister, Hans-Peter Friedrich, told reporters in Berlin recently that the country was witnessing a new form of far-right terrorism, one that does not publicly claim responsibility for attacks or vaunt its actions within the far-right scene. End quote. In eastern Germany, self-proclaimed neo-Nazis have even been voted into state parliaments, as part of the far-right National Democratic Party of Germany, or NPD. In the course of the last year, 1,872 neo-Nazi websites were logged in Germany, over 800 more than 5 years previously. Right-wing extremism on the internet is on the rise. The number of neo-Nazi networks has tripled within a year to 90. According to the German youth protection organization, Jugendschutz.net, which also stated that up to 10,000 internet users access neo-Nazi blogs and platforms every day. The number of websites from the National Democratic Party rose 30%. The extremists are even spreading their hate message via social networking communities like Facebook and video sharing platforms such as YouTube. Here is what Time magazine noted just this year about the elections in Europe this past summer, quote, "Around Europe a ragbag of extremist parties, as varied as the countries that produced them, yet united by a vehement nationalism that singles out minority groups as a growing threat, scored in Austria, Belgium, Bulgaria, Denmark, France, Finland, Greece, Hungary, Italy, Latvia, Romania and Slovakia. Confronted with sliding economies and disappearing jobs, voters kicked the mainstream parties they held most responsible." End quote.
Historian Gaetano Salvini argued in 1936 that fascism makes taxpayers responsible to private enterprise, because, quote, "the state pays for the blunders of private enterprise, profit is private and individual. Loss is public and social." End quote. This private gain and public loss might sound familiar to many people around the world right now, as the banking cartel goes by the socialism for the rich and capitalism for the rest of us theme. The fight against fascism was thought to have ended in 1945, the fight against communism commenced with the beginning of the Cold War, and we booted communism out of Europe too. Let's hope that we don't start all over again with extreme right-wing ideologies rising. They are just as dangerous as extreme left-wing after the fall of democracy looms in Europe. The outcome is uncertain, unless the people rise up and say that it's the international banking cartel versus us, not me versus you, for we are the many, and they are the few.
Have a good weekend everyone, and thanks for watching the World Revolution News.